Okay. Greetings, viewers, listeners, subscribers, Nickelodeon fans, and lost media enthusiasts. I am Paul, the host for tonight and runner of this channel, Synth Commando. And welcome to this special of Nickelodeon Woodstock. I'm here with Raymie Muzquiz. Raymie, how are you and how is it in Los Angeles?
It's hot, and I'm still not used to the heat for this year.
Oh. Okay. I've actually never been to California in my entire life. To be honest with you, I was born in the Midwest, and now I live in the East Coast.
Well, come visit.
Okay, I used to want to, but anyway, you know, Raymie, it's great to be doing this with you, and I'm saying this for the viewers. I plan on releasing this streaming live, you know, so it's on Saturday Night Live, pun intended.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this isn't the first time you've done something like this, right, with someone who's a fan. I mean, you've done this with people from Australia, correct?
Yes, I have.
All right. Well, anyway, to the point. With that intro said, I'm going to be talking with Raymie Muzquiz about Hollywood projects he's done that are as an animation director and storyboard artist for some that are well known and under the radar / underrated. He's worked under many famous studios and briefly, which will be discussed, so as well as a very rare former lost Nicktoons Nick flick animated musical called The Electric Piper. Okay, so Raymie, what inspired you first of all to get into the animation business at the start? And
I've always loved cartoons, and it seemed if you asked anybody who was watching me grow up, they would say, of course I ended up working in animation. I myself, I thought it was too kind of immature a thing for me, like it wouldn't be serious. And I went to a film school, and I also went to a film school, you know, thinking I was going to do live action, and that's the direction I wanted to send my career in. But it seemed like it was way better paying jobs as far as what I could get a hold of to do animation. So, you know, it's like I do love animation, but I guess maybe I had more pretensions than higher pretensions than I thought. Now I'm very, very happy to just be working in animation and not live action.
Oh, well, that's really cool, you know, because I actually used to, when I was younger, I wanted to be more live stuff like acting, but ended up just trying to get more involved in animation. I actually never took any steps to get into Hollywood, but I have a huge interest in it, and I think I honestly had potential because from what I used to watch, especially cartoons, I could really imitate character. So that's pretty hip, as kids from the 60s would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So how did you end up working? One of your probably best known credits in the 90s was The Simpsons, and you started working with, I can't remember the last name of the creator, Matt.
It's Groening.
Matt Straining?
No, Groening. Like grain?
Grain, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
How'd you end up working with him, Matt Groening, and getting on The Simpsons as a storyboard artist?
It was a very, very unique time in the fact that, you know, there was barely any animation happening in LA, certainly in LA, that was considered mainstream. You know, it's like the outgoing generations of the animators, if they didn't catch that Disney wave and work feature, there was a lot of like really talented guys who kind of like had their souls ground down doing a lot of, you know, Saturday morning stuff. And I mean, it sounds like a terrible cliche, but a lot of them were alcoholic. So it's just like you had kind of like down on their luck middle generation between kind of Disney and the Nine Old Men era. So and then here comes the Simpsons, and there literally wasn't enough people. I mean, they were pulling people out of Cal Arts, and there was a lot of young people that seemed to have the chops for this, but they hadn't worked in animation yet, and I was one of those people. So I would draw on my own. I always storyboarded for my film projects, and as I told you, I was trying to get into live action, and I was able to work at Roger Corman's studio for a little while. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but I did some storyboarding for that, but mostly, I was slinging hash, like running the what do they call it? This craft service table on these film shoots. So anyway, Simpsons comes. It's incredibly popular. They're rerunning it to death, and so there's interest, there's money. They're ready to go and do another season, but they just didn't have enough staff to actually do the show and start the show up. And so they were literally, they put ads in the paper. I saw it in the trade, Hollywood Reporter. They had a picture of Homer, and I think they had one of Marge, and it just said, if you can draw, please call this number. And so I did it, and I got a test, and they hired me like immediately. So that's how I got into it, and then I almost found myself out of it, because the first storyboard I turned in, they had a first-time director who was directing me, and he didn't know quite what he was doing yet. It's the great Jim Reardon, by the way, who, since then has become he's flourished. He's a really great director. Great guy, but, he knew about as much as I did, and the first storyboard was looked on by Gracie Films, who's, they were at the writing ends at Fox. They thought it would look terrible, and that I should be fired, and the paperwork was started. It's like this, and this is all unbeknownst to me. I didn't hear this story until years later, but I thought I had a new job and a new career, and meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was going to have the rug pulled out from under me. Entering my life at that point was Mark Kirkland, another stalwart, young generation. Now he's a veteran director who's worked on The Simpsons since the beginning. He managed to see my work and see me when I was talking to Jim, and he intervened. So he said that that if there was any question about the quality of my work, he would take the heat, and I could work with him essentially and learn the ropes. So I have Mark Kirkland to thank for keeping my career alive, because it's just, as soon as it started, it seemed like it could have been just snuffed out.
Right. Well, Raymie, to be honest with you, I don't really know much about Fox, but and it's very interesting, how, it's sort of a hit or miss, I guess you could say. Like, you were almost fired while doing a storyboard, but I guess you got to try, and you got to take your chances sometimes with this stuff, I assume, right?
Yeah, it was there's kind of two things mixed up here. What you're talking about is like, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's like, you don't want to go with the safe ideas. You want to try and show new points of view, maybe show it in different styles, kind of like what Klasky Chupo ended up doing is for a while, is they created a kind of a wacky new style. And then there was just a matter of competency, and experience. I was under the assumption, merely because I had relatives and friends tell me, my first odd years of my life, that, I knew how to draw. But when I actually was dropped into this production, and I was there with people that came out of Cal Arts and went to art school and stuff, I was like holy shit, I barely know how to draw. So, it's like there was good reasons to kind of like, hold your nose at my initial work, because it's, I really didn't know how to draw gesture, and I had no life drawing experience. All of those kind of disciplines that you would have learned in art school. It's just sort of like I was not exposed to that at all. So I plunged in purely ignorant of what was going to be required of me.
Yeah, actually, I want to tell you something before we move on to the next question. I actually had an interest in drawing, like, professionally as well. But it feels like today, any kid that wants to learn how to draw amazing can, like, go online instead of having to go to, like, California art school or something. I take it wasn't that easy back then because we didn't have computers or the internet. But,
right.
Yeah, but, I mean, you can draw now, can't you? Or...
Yes, and the thing is, it's like, what I do is, how do I phrase this? It's sort of like I'm very focused on the process, so sort of like, don't look to me to draw you finished art. I mean, that drives me nuts if I have to do something finished. It's like, if you want me to rough things out, to show things in motion, show other artists how to do something, it's like, I communicate visually, and I certainly can draw finished storyboards fine, but it's sort of like, worrying about, pencil line, what kind of line the characters are, that kind of stuff. But don't look at me to draw official art of any show that I've ever worked on.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And, okay, so... And I just want to add this minor note in here. I actually, when I first saw the Electric Piper, which we're going to get to in a little bit, that increased my motivation to want to draw. I actually, you could say, fell in love with it and just ended up drawing all the characters to the best of my ability with knowledge and skill.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I can always, if you're interested, I can show you some of my attempted drawings, the ones that look the best.
You should post them. Put them over this podcast, or sorry, your YouTube video that you're making.
Yeah, sure. Okay, moving on. So, other projects in the business, Raymie, if I understand correctly, as you replied to some other man looking for the Piper, a lot of stuff you work on, unfortunately, and I feel bad for you for this, honestly, has ended up in obscurity or lost as well, like Big Bug Man or the original Hey Arnold, the Jungle movie.
Oh yeah.
Is there a reason, like Big Bug Man, that, as I understand, was like the Godfather's last movie before he died, where he was a cartoon woman? And
right. Marlon Brando.
Right. Thank you. I don't remember the Godfather's name.
Yeah. So we got Marlon Brando. He recorded his last role before he died. He was playing this old woman who was the matriarch owner of a candy company. I am one of the few people who actually heard the recording. And I have to say, it was utterly unusable. I mean, he was on an oxygen tank at that point, and he would he was lucky to get through a word without having to put the oxygen mask on. So the recordings we have of him are mostly sound effects of breathing.
Right.
I mean, God bless him.
Yeah, God bless him. He'll never be forgotten, and hopefully he'll be known one day for this as his last role.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if that would be good for him, frankly.
Okay, but anyway, I did see, like any footage of Big Bug Man that exists. Some of it I did see on your website before you updated it from blue to orange background.
Oh yeah. Oh, you've seen it already?
the storyboards of like some guy. I assume it's the main guy. He like
Yeah.
gets a bug up his nose, and then like a bunch of bugs are watching him. Like as he tries to get it out, it would also save the fly's life.
Yeah.
You drew all that, right?
I did. So, that was, it's rare that I've had those, purely feature, experiences, and that's what this was. I mean, it never got made, but it was run like a feature. So, we had a script, and we knew where we had to get to, from one point to the next point, which would be a scene or a sequence. But then, it's just sort of like you had to gag it up. So it's like you had to choreograph a sequence, a series of scenes that, would have jokes that you came up with, and keep the story going, give the story some texture and some fun, some life, essentially. And so I'm using that as a benchmark as opposed to, what most of what TV is. You do try to insert all that stuff as much as you can, but more often than not, you're on a script and a tight schedule, so you essentially just want to accomplish what's on the script and hopefully make it a little more ornate later.
Okay. Well, yeah, so is there, what is the main reason, if you know, why Big Bug Man is, I want to say, kind of still in development or, abandoned, unfortunately?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much abandoned now. It was an independent film it wasn't developed within a studio system. It was essentially Bob Benditson, who is a really hilariously funny comedy writer, and she had Simpsons experience, and he had his resources, and he teamed up with a producer. His name is escaping me right now. Who had he had previously worked for Michael Nesmith of the Beatles when Michael Nesmith had his production company, Monterey. Oh God, something Monterey. Monterey Arts, I think it's called. Anyway, just side story. Michael Nesmith, he is unofficially the creator of music videos. He created something in the early '70s called Elephant Parts, and if you haven't seen that, you should treat yourself to that because it was a perfect combination of him inventing, a form of sketch comedy that's kind of taken off since then. But anyway, so it was that producer, Bob Bennington, independent studio. We had a rental space in Santa Monica. There's and it was always a matter of trying to keep the lights on while we found the money people that would back this. And it always seemed to be they had one person, teed up, ready to give them money, but they always needed that second person, to shore it up and have a complete deal. And nobody wanted to pull the trigger first. So it was the first investor is always looking for the second investor to come in, find some sort of, positive reinforcement that this was the right thing to do. And, they would get so close so often, but it never happened.
Right. That's
and then at a certain point, it's just sort of we just couldn't keep the lights on anymore. There just wasn't enough money to keep it going.
Right. So, it's sad, and you're you gotta say screw it, kind of.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
And that was a very, very, very funny script.
Okay, but now, Hey Arnold, the Jungle movie, which that fortunately one day saw the light of day again. Thank God.
Yeah.
According to one guy on YouTube, I don't remember this guy, but he said it's unknown how much of the original version got made before being dropped.
We really didn't animate it. We didn't animate much. All we did was It was more in an effort to line up and find a overseas studio who would have the chops to do a feature version of the show. You know, we had Sayram was the studio that did the TV show, but since it was going to be a feature, and they wanted somebody, they were looking for a studio that had more depth and talent, you know, that would be able to like animate horses and do more detailed feature style acting and animation. So as a result, we storyboarded a small sequence. It was a chase sequence, and I think that's on YouTube.
Yes, it is.
A chase sequence where
it is
on horses. You know that one?
Yeah, it's considered like. I want to mention this as a side note. I follow a YouTube guy who talks about lost media called Blame It On George or Jorge, however you want to pronounce that. And he said it was like one of the first things I ever saw from him back in 2015, and he said like only a test run of this exists. And to be honest with you, it was also where he mentioned Big Bug Man and the Electric Piper, so that's where I first saw, I guess, these three things you were involved in. And at the time, they were all, I guess, lost still.
Yeah, now I'm beginning to see your point of view. Yeah, I guess there is a lot of my stuff that's lost.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't think of my career that way, but you might have a point. But just getting back to that original iteration of the Jungle movie, so we had, oh man, I think it was like 5 different animation studios animate that same bit. So it was a really, I wish all of those versions existed. I don't know if I have it. If I do, it's on VHS. I don't know. I don't know if I have it anymore. But it was to see the same sequence with the same dialogue track, you know, being animated by these different studios and seeing where they decided to, you know, express themselves. It was really interesting. So it was exciting to see the test, and we had chosen a studio, and I can't tell you which one it was. It was too long ago. But in this case, you know, we had, you know, it was a known quantity. Hey Arnold was a known quantity.
Yeah.
It was at a studio. You know, it was Nickelodeon, and they had a feature deal with Paramount at the time. So you know, it could have happened, but you know, in this case, kind of politics got in the way of it, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, I'll admit this. Like, there was a movie for Hey Arnold that came out around the time, I guess, that replaced the Jungle movie, which I could assume for a lot of people, well, maybe some like it, but I know critics kind of said it's POS.
What does that mean?
Piece of shit.
Okay. Yeah. See, well, that was part of that was part of the equation that led to the canceling of the second movie. So I was hired to work on that first iteration of the movie. The co-director, the wonderful Tuck Tucker, who I miss, he's in retirement somewhere in Virginia now, or West Virginia, I forget. But anyway, he was working on the last 3 episodes of the Hey Arnold TV show. And that was going to be a movie of the week, and that was called Arnold Saves the Neighborhood, and that's what became the Hey Arnold movie. So at the time, at the whole process of animating it, doing layout, animation, pulling retakes, everything, it was mentally Tuck knew that this was going to be on TV. And then there was an executive in charge, and he decided, hey, why spend a bunch of money and do the Jungle movie when we could just put this in the theater. So we're talking about huge technical issues that were in play here. TV then wasn't widescreen. It was, it was 3:4 the box.
VHS.
It wasn't widescreen. It was animated probably, anywhere between 8 and 12 field animation, which means, the pencil line was could only be blown up so big, and when it was projected on a big screen, it wouldn't look very good. But this executive went ahead and did it anyway, and as a result, it was a TV show that was, it was a dog turned into a cat. It was kind of like pulling a fast one on the audience, and it just kind of spoiled the fortunes of Hey Arnold as a franchise going forward as movies.
Right. I just have one question regarding that producer. Was that Albie Heck, the former CEO of Nick?
I won't say it wasn't him.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, before I get into the Electric Piper now, I'm going to say I never really watched Nickelodeon much as a kid, so unfortunately I can't say I've ever heard of Hey Arnold before until a few recent years, because a lot of Nickelodeon actually scared me growing up in the early 2000s, like watching Rugrats or basically anything you can think of that's Nick. You can find something that was like nightmare fuel or nightmare inducing for kids.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's not an invalid criticism of it. I know especially Rugrats, our aesthetic was definitely to be ugly.
Right. And I ended up, as a matter of fact, I did see Jimmy Neutron, the movie, and then the TV series a little. And I'll say I've avoided it since then. But anyway. But the Electric Piper, when I saw that when it was rediscovered August 9th, 2016 on its VHS original tape, brought to the internet, I was like, this is incredible. This is like a rare finding treasure. It's like, it's one of the best things that Nick has made, and yet it's buried. Okay. So, if now moving into the Piper, first of all, you started getting involved in 1998, right?
I'm a little unsure on the dates, but I know my daughter was born then, and she was born in '98, so I would have to say that's pretty close to the mark.
Okay. Well, I was born in 1999, so this was going on while I was in production. And so, about the Electric Piper a little bit, I guess you weren't involved in the pitch. I talked to Bill Burnett before, and he said he started a pitch of it back at Hanna-Barbera in '97, a year, I guess, before production started. So, but you weren't there at Turner for that.
No, I wasn't.
No, okay. And I'm just going to make this clear, This is like mostly Bill Burnett's, all of his work, right? It's not really yours. It's...
in what way? What are you talking about the writing?
Yeah, like the whole source material is Bill Burnett all over, right?
Bill provided the script and the songs. I mean, that was an enormous. It was an enormous way to start the show. I mean, this project. I can't tell you how pleased I was to read this and be involved in it. I thought this was like really, really meaty metaphorical material that, and I really wanted to use that, to sink my teeth into. I don't know. I guess I'm not sure what else to tell you about that. We brought in a team. You mentioned Jerry Richardson in your emails. Jerry was fantastic, and it really played to his strengths. So he developed the look, and then I working as a director was looking at creating a template to place over this movie, where over the script, which just kind of like help clarify and help work out the kind of the subtleties of it. So eventually it became a team effort, but Bill Burnett's script was just, it's one of the best I've ever read.
Yeah, I think so too, and
the songs were incredible. It's just like I love listening to the soundtrack to this day.
Yeah, about the script, I actually have a copy of the script as a PDF file, thanks to... Sorry, what?
I just agreeing with you, yes. I know you... I think... I remember... Bill... I think Bill asked me for something, and I got him a copy of... I don't know, maybe he didn't even have the script. Maybe that copy was actually from my book. I don't know. But anyway, suffice to say, yeah, you have the script.
Yes, and I don't know if you're going to remember this. If it was back in 2018 when I first talked to you through a Gmail, I asked you if because I was focused on reading some rumors from a now defunct blog in 2011 called A Musical a Day. And they mentioned the Electric Piper, and a lot of people overlooked, like, in 2011, how does this blog, whoever's running it, even have a copy of the movie at the time? Because it's not been leaked online yet, at least not for 5 more years. But they said that there was a lot of stuff in there cut that was considered dark, and I thought, and that's what I asked you about, if there's like a director's cut, and... but no.
No, it was hard enough getting enough animation to make it the length that it was. It was just a tortured process. And I feel so bad that I couldn't rise to the occasion and give this movie, everything that I wanted to give it. It was just, the making of it was just it was just fraught from the get-go, and it was, I don't know how much detail you want from that.
No, I liked a lot of detail. I mean, can you tell why it was terrible as much as you can?
Well, it's like I hate saying that was that the outcome was terrible. I just felt like it was not everything that I wanted it to be. At that time in animation history, it's just like this is like kind of post Lion King and the rise of DreamWorks, and there was anybody who had animation experience was having money thrown at them and having they had the pick of the best jobs they could possibly want. So it was really terribly hard to get staffed properly ever on this project. And when there were so many features going on and money was being thrown around very loosely, and there were signing bonuses and stuff, it was utterly impossible to get anybody to come drive across town, because we were set up in the MTV building in Santa Monica. Most animation was taking place, in Burbank and in the Valley, and you didn't have to, traverse LA to get to work on possibly the worst freeway in the world, the 10. It's just, and for a project that was, it was scheduled really tightly. it was like I can't even imagine. I don't even think it was 6 months long. The project. It actually went much longer because reality reared its ugly head. But at that time, trying to find people to work 6 months and have an hour-long commute each way, when there was better paying and longer-lasting gigs, near where most people live, you could see that nobody would want to take our job.
Right, but
so I did find some people, and they were like third and fourth picks, and I swear this is not an exaggeration. I had a guy literally disappear on me. He took the job, he started working, and he disappeared, and nobody knew where he went, and his work was never done.
Wow, what a letdown.
Yeah. So, and then it's like you name it, it happened at the studio. At MTV at that period, they had a lot of productions coming in and out. It's just sort of like they do 6 weeks of a game show or then a reality show, and so there was like constant fluctuations of people, always new people that were kind of like outside my door. When we inhabited a small corner of the studio, but it's always this heavy turnover of people and equipment and noise. And at some point, Jerry Richardson's computer that had all the designs on it were stolen. And then at another point, the sprinklers, the fire extinguishing, sprinkler system went off.
Yeah.
It just sort of it was sort of like cursed. We were just kind of cursed.
Yeah, it actually feels kind of like, I don't know, makes me feel like this thing was, I don't want to say rigged, but it feels like what you said, cursed, like, damn. Yeah.
And, we had tremendous music from the get-go, and I have to mention Guy Moon's contribution to this too. He came up with all the melodies and stuff, and all of the incidental music, which is excellent. It's just as excellent as the song stuff that he did with Bill. At some point, very late in the game, we had already storyboarded this thing. Was that the lawyers for Nickelodeon or MTV Networks, some legal organization that had power over us, said that none of the songs would pass muster because they would all be, the term is plagiarized.
Yeah.
It looked like all of the melodies were plagiarized, and that was kind of the point of of this movie, was that we were going to type genres of music. There was going to be a Beach Boys tune. There was going to be a Procol Harum tune. There was going to be something that was going to be Hendrixy and the Doors. It's like we were sampling all that stuff, but they thought it was too close to the mark, and they had made us re-record the songs, and that was like any people that I had on board at that point were gone, and so it's just like constantly things were landing in my lap without the proper resources to try and deal with them.
Right. Bill actually, last Thanksgiving, he sent me what he told me. He had his own CD and MP3 files of early demo recordings with Guy Moon, and I can see why. I mean, he compared the demos to the final version. Like, for example, there was one where Sly, the character Jimi Hendrix, like Pied Piper, he's singing something like Sgt. Pepper's, but they altered it in the final version.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seemed like, categorically, we always seem to get cut off at the knees. And then there was a whole matter of the overseas studio. Let's see, who were we using? We were using Rough Draft, and who I've worked with many times since then, with no bad blood or anything, but...
Right. Rough Draft is in Korea.
Correct. Rough Draft, yeah, there's two kind of iterations of it. There's Rough Draft Studios, which I've worked at on many shows, and they're in Burbank, and then they have their kind of like, I guess you could call it a sister company, that was kind of like, created for Ren and Stimpy, I think, way back when, and, you know, does a lot of heavy lifting on most of TV animation that you see now.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like, you know, it was the only time in my career where I was dressed down. I was seriously, you know, criticized. I mean, I was just essentially yelled at by our overseas studio about the quality of our show. You know, it was like, you know, the signal flow is supposed to go the other way. You know, you hire the overseas studio and they try to work for you. You're the boss over them. But it's just like, what I learned through this process of getting yelled at was that they were sold a bill of goods. They were told that they agreed to animate this show for a certain price because they were told it was going to be a small little fairy tale that would only have a few characters in it. And then here we come with, you know, legions of rats, tons of families, all these effects. And it was like, you know, they were essentially lied to, and, you know, and I don't know, I can't say who did it, but they were very upset about it. And so, they were looking to me to make it, you know, try and make the show easier. We cut out a whole sequence, which was a yellow submarine sequence. That was like, it could have been really, really beautiful, but it was obviously, it was going to, you know, it was going to be expensive and time, you know, the phrase is jumping out of my head right now. Time intensive is going to do this. And so it was a matter of me trying to placate this, you know, an overseas studio that was sold a bill of goods, you know, just to get it done. And when they finally did do it, and we had, and then another thing I'm saying that's no exaggeration is that we had like 85% retakes on the show. You know, it was like we were trying to make a ton of things that were done wrong try and work.
Right. Sounds like Electric Piper is in development hell.
Yeah, well, it's like production hell at that point. It was production hell.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like, you know, I fault myself because I was still pretty green then. I'd only worked at Classy Chupo, and I had kind of a support system around me of people that were very, you know, that were very, very talented, that I could rely on to back me up. And I found myself with, you know, barely any production help and very little artist help at the end of this production when all the shit started hitting the fan. And yeah, if I had more experience, I think maybe I would have thrown some furniture, and I certainly would have known more artists by then. I would have had more people on my contact app on my phone, you know, that I had known, you know, after 30 years of working in the business. Back then, I only had like, I think 8 years worth in the business, or maybe 7.
Well, I'm really sorry for you that it had to be that way. I mean, I want to make something clear, though. You said MTV Networks is where you were working this thing simultaneously with Nick?
Correct.
I thought it was, in the credits, Frederator Studios.
Yeah, well, it was a weird Frankenstein kind of production. It's like, Fred Siebert had his production company, and then he was kind of the producing company. So it'd be like, you know, you take a producer, a famous producer, and he takes the project to a studio. You know, it's still his project, but the studio is, you know, going to bankroll it. So this was kind of the case for here. We had it was Fred Siebert's Frederator company. They were the producing company, and they were doing it through Nickelodeon. And Nickelodeon had the subdivision at that point called Nickflix.
Yes.
So again, it was this kind of really, really optimistic, rosy future of animation at that point, where they were committing to doing I think they saw this the the series called Netflix, occurring on Sundays, and doing either, I think it might be both animated and live action, but original musical.
Yeah.
So we were part of that, and I know there was some hubbub about having us set up at the Nickelodeon studio proper in Burbank, which is what I desperately wanted, because then it would make our show more attractive to more artists, and maybe I would have gotten better artists, especially storyboard. Having Jerry Richardson be the art director was probably the best thing that, besides Bill's script, that could happen to the show. So we had a very, very strong sense of design, and he knew painters that could give him exactly what he wanted. But getting artists to do, fill in all the details, especially storyboard artists, that was a very, very tricky department to try and staff, and I never ever did it adequately. We never attained a staff. It was essentially me storyboarding everything.
Okay. Wow. So,
but I'm sorry, I lost focus here. So yeah, there was some reason. I think there was some legal reason, like somebody that was on our production couldn't be at Nickelodeon, in the Nickelodeon building, like there's some bad blood or something. But anyway, we were set up. We were forced to set up on the opposite end of town, which was the MTV Networks building, which was a really, really hip place, but we were the only animation going on there. Nobody wanted to drive out there. I know Fred lived out in that end of the woods, and often that will happen if you have somebody that's very powerful running a production. They'll move it over to the left side, so it's near their home, and they don't have to they don't have to get on the I-10. And I think that might have been a factor. Fred he got some sort of promotion almost immediately when we started Electric Piper, and so he moved to New York.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I hope I didn't ramble too long on that.
No, it's okay. Moving on, though, I did get to talk a bit about on Bill's side of the story, and he said for him it was like troublesome writing the script. Like he was pressured to write this thing in 3 months. He said he has to. In the morning, during the daytime at Nick or Frederator, he worked on Oh Yeah cartoons for Chalk Zone at the time as a pilot season, and then at night he'd have to clear his desk, write Electric Piper all night.
Oh God.
That was, yeah. But anyway, I completely believe it, because we certainly were forced, square peg in a round hole, trying to make this what could have been a fantastic feature, being squashed into this little TV schedule, trying to use the talent that was available and do it in very, very quick time. I can't remember what our schedule was, but I mean, it's just sort of like my blood would run cold, and I'd feel like I was going to pass out every time I considered what the actual schedule was. It was impossible to pull off. Right. So, moving on a little, I want to talk now about my personal experience and reaction to the movie.
Okay.
I just want to get your reaction, kind of. So, Raymie, when I saw the Electric Piper, to be honest, I didn't care for it too much at first, because it was Nick, and I had a history, as I said earlier, of not liking Nick, but I gave it a chance, and as I said, I fell in love with it, and so I think the animation is very nice to look at, despite all the hell it went through. And a guy actually reviewed it, who's on YouTube as well, saying that at the time when this movie was released, it was originally going to be released, I think, in early 2000, but it got held back, I think, till 2003.
Yeah, that's another thing, if I can interject, historically that happened for Nickelodeon. And you'll have to, I don't want to say that I know exactly. I'm going to tell you what I think happened as being a spectator. There was some sort of scandal that happened with ratings. Maybe it wasn't a scandal, but the upshot is the incredible upswing in ratings that Nickelodeon had that made them so optimistic, and put this very ambitious Netflix thing together. Was suddenly, suddenly had to be abandoned because either the rating books were they were cheated on, or they weren't correct, or there was just a huge drop in rating. But anyway, it affected commercial costs, and suddenly Nick was extremely vulnerable and didn't have the money that they thought they had. So that squandered the whole idea of Nickflix. So we had these shows in production. We had I had a sister production that was directed by John Eng. It was 80 days, Around the World in 80 Days. I don't know if you're aware of that project.
Globe Hunters.
But that was literally our sister project.
Globe Hunters.
But anyway, those things were no longer going to be on Nickflix. It was going to have to be figured out how they would program the stuff that was already in the works.
Right. Okay, so it did have its chance, as I understand, to eventually air like February 3rd, 2003, and then it's never seen again.
Correct.
Which, if I honestly swear to this, if I could go back in time, because I was alive then, but only 3 years old, so I couldn't really know what's on TV, I'd go back in time to see it air. I would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It's just sort of like it's like once it was made, and we realized that there was no Netflix anymore. It just we kind of all went our separate ways, and years went by before I realized I heard that it was going to air, and then I wasn't even told the right date. So I've never seen it on air. And once in a while, somebody will tell me that they did see it again, but I've never had that confirmed. So I don't know if you've heard anything like that either. But so I couldn't tell you exactly when you may have seen it or how many times it may have aired.
Okay. Well, I didn't see it until the day it was found again in the internet. Which, to be honest, I've become so in love with it. August 9th is now to me a special day.
Wow, that's great. It's just here I am. I've been bellyaching about how the production went and how how it was a baptism of fire, and it wasn't what I wanted, and yet it's out there and it's making it's special to you, which is that's very heartening. That's great.
Yeah.
I hope there's lots of people like that out there, for all the things that I've done.
Well, before I get into a few more questions, I will tell you I am trying to do my part to make it get more popular or even a cult fandom. It's got a little bit of one now, but I don't know. Bill actually once told me he thought there may be a day, if you've heard of Shout Factory, they could maybe do something to get it, but I highly doubt it will ever be officially re-released on home media or something. But
oh wow,
I heard Shout Factory is good at getting people what they want when it comes to movies.
I see.
Anyway, Raymie,
Oh, you know what? Vis-a-vis that, I have in front of me an email that, let's see, it was from a good friend who was an executive at Nick at the time that I was doing the Jungle movie, when we did the final TV movie version.
Yeah.
And I was going to read it to you. So this is dated November 24th, 2015. I had asked her leading up to this, you know, she was new to the company, and she promoted herself as a fan of Nick and knowing Nick inside out. And I said, okay, well, I'll riddle you this. It's like, do you know, have you ever seen The Electric Piper? And she said, I've never heard of The Electric Piper. And I said, is it possible you could find out whatever happened to it or what its status is, if the network's ever going to do anything with it? And she said, yeah, I'd be happy to. So she was looking into it. Every once in a while she would tell me she was still looking into it. And then, as I said, this November 24th, 2015 email has her final results here. It says, hi, Raymie. I'm sorry to report that after months of research and discussion, our legal teams have concluded that we don't have sufficient records to give us enough clarity on the rights for this project, which means we can't distribute it at this time. Please know that a full effort was made. So Nickelodeon is actually, I guess, showing that it's actually lost its own mind in the sense that it doesn't have its history. It didn't have it in its hands, its own history, and therefore it doesn't have. It just can't. It doesn't have enough paperwork of the the provenance of this project to do anything with it. Which is like that just seems pretty insane, but it also seems kind of like par for the course of the way this production is.
Right. Okay. So just a few more questions, Raymie.
Sure.
But I want to ask you now. So regarding the cast and characters, I heard when I found out Rodney Dangerfield, just from his voice as the Rat King, was in this. I found out later from Bill, when I got to contact him, Rodney Dangerfield, I think this was some people online think this is his last film before he died.
Oh, wow.
But
I don't know.
But Bill told me, I assume you were also a voice director, so you directed the voice acting, correct?
Yes.
Bill told me that Rodney had broken both of his ankles when he came into the recording.
No shit. Really?
Yeah, you didn't see that? I mean, you were there, right?
I was there. I mean, he had a terrible time walking, and he was like, he didn't have his shirt buttoned right. I just assumed he was kind of stoned or old or. Now I'm slandering poor man. I can't. Did Bill say that he was on crutches or something? Because it wasn't that case. I mean, he came in under his own steam. He wasn't in a wheelchair or anything.
Oh no! All Bill said was he broke his ankles.
Yeah, I can't confirm that. I mean, this was a really, really crazy period because just like they changed the songs, or had to change the songs, we had higher-ups from Nickelodeon come to us after we had recorded all of the characters and storyboarded them to their performances. Some department at Nick said, "Hey, we got to step cast this. We got to change half your cast with known name actors." And I had a fabulous guy. Oh man, I can't remember his name either. I apologize about that.
That's
who was
okay.
playing Rat-a-tat-tat, which was Ronnie Boyd. This guy could sing, and he could act. And do you remember? I don't know if this is dating me or not, but around that time, Robert Goulet was doing. He had his version of Camelot going on. Do you know who Robert Goulet is?
No.
Okay, Robert Goulet was he was kind of like a Dean Martin kind of character. You know, he's like kind of a lounge lizard, kind of like crooner. It's kind of popular in the 50s and 60s. Anyway, he kind of had his renaissance of being, kind of like ironic culture from the past. Doing like a traveling show of Camelot. Anyway, my vision for this character, to kind of give you insight what a director does, is I asked this actor to do a Robert Goulet as Rat-a-tat-tat. So what we had was like a beautiful mellifluous kind of singer, lounge singer. He was kind of making love to the mic when he was saying all these lines that Rat-a-tat-tat said, and it gave you this really great kind of contrast between how gross he was and that he was a rat, but he was king of rats, and he had to have some sort of charisma. This is my directing thinking, to pull off this role as as being a leader of this rats and taking over this town. He gave you charisma. So we gave it to him. We gave it, we had this guy doing Robert Goulet, and it was I thought it was hilarious. But anyway, one of the, so the collateral damage of having this department come in and tell us we had to have stunt casting, they told us, no, get rid of that guy and get Rodney Dangerfield. Rodney Dangerfield, God love him, was very old at that point. I was almost like the Marlon Brando story we were talking about earlier. It's like he had trouble reading it. He didn't seem like he really wanted to be there. He wanted a sandwich before he could record, and he couldn't sing. So it's just sort of like we had a guy that was just kind of, he just wasn't into the role like the guy that I had cast before. And I don't know if Bill told you this, but Bill had to do the singing voice of Rodney Dangerfield because Rodney couldn't carry a note.
Oh, no, he didn't tell me that.
Yeah, but I mean, if you listen to him when he makes the break into actually singing, you'll hear that. I mean, Bill's got an incredibly resonant, voice.
Yeah.
I think maybe if you talk to him at any length, I think he might pick it up on next time you listen to it.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, just sort of like they just ran roughshod over us, this department, and made us change. Wayne Brady was always there from the get-go. I take complete responsibility for hiring Wayne Brady. He was excellent.
As Slim.
I just like it's like I got to make the final choice, and I chose him. It was like I think it was up with him and maybe two other guys.
Okay.
But he was there from the beginning, and it was absolutely necessary that he pull off the Jimi Hendrix kind of aspect.
Right.
And he did a fantastic job. But like Laura San Giacomo, she was great, but she came in as a stunt cast later. Can't see who else I got here. Let's see. I have to look at the IMDb for this movie. It's been so long. George Siegel. Another fantastic, great guy. He wasn't my original mayor. And then Rock Schneider came in. He replaced Ricky Dink Dink. I can't remember who I had for that guy. But I think one of the stunt casting really hurt us was having Rat-a-tat-tat changed over to Rodney. But I'm sorry, I can't confirm the broken ankle thing. I saw no evidence of that.
Oh. Okay. Regarding two more cast members, Mick and Janice, the two main children. Mick was Robbie Wrist, and
right.
Janice was. I don't think she acts on TV anymore or feature film. Like she's now Broadway Leslie Margarita.
Yes.
But Bill told me that Leslie Margarita, voicing young Janice, was she sort of like, would you say Janice's age at the time she did this, or he said she was a juvenile at the time.
Huh. Wait, I'm sorry. The point is that Leslie, at the time that she recorded, was too young for the role? Is that what you're saying?
No. Was she a child star at the time, or she wasn't fully grown up, right?
I didn't know her from Adam, but she was a beautiful singer. I mean, she was. It's like what I love about working with actors is that you see these people that have chops, like Jason Alexander, who can sing and dance and act and stuff, that you're blessed to have show up and add to your project. Just to kind of bolster it with their energy. She was one of those people. I was told at the time that she was more of like you said, more of a Broadway actress because she did a lot of singing. Now I remember she was attractive and young. I don't remember her being a child star. I mean, she was certainly younger than Robbie. Robbie, was much older than he sounded.
Right. Okay. Now, this last few things before I stop the recording.
Okay.
Just asking from your opinion, who you consider your favorite characters and favorite songs from the movie?
Oh wow,
that's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, I have to say I really love. Oh gosh, boy, I don't know if I'm going to remember the name. It's kind of what ended up being as close to the Doors-esque song. The one where one of the characters said, "Oh, Mr. Jones says, oh shoot, there's something going on." Shoot, he quotes the. Man, my mind is drawing a blank here. Let me just bring the tracks up, and maybe that'll help me.
Okay.
He said one of the Dylan lines. Let's see. Climb that mountain. Climb the mountain. That's the song that I'm trying to think of.
Yeah. I thought for a while, Climb the Mountain sounds like the Doors' Soul Kitchen. Yeah.
And I'm glad that still comes true. Because that was kind of our psychedelic Doors-esque. That was kind of the vibe we were going for.
Yeah.
It was kind of hallucinatory.
Yeah, like a doorway to the Rockies.
Yeah. And then When They Come, that's another one that I really, really love.
Oh my God, I cried the first few times I heard that one.
That's good.
It's so heartwarming. But one of my favorite songs is Sly's The Guy with the Smokey Robinson and Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah.
I really like that one, especially the part where you feel kind of bad for Mick, the boy, because he can't play at Sly's level, and then Sly takes over the whole show and the kids cheer him on.
That was where I hope it comes across that you see that's where everything turns. Sly is somebody they look up to and looks like he has he has all the answers and he's fun and you want to spend all your time with him, and yet at a certain point you see that he needs them more than they need him, and there's that dark side that he's a monster that needs his ego fed.
Yeah.
Monster might be strong of a word, but that he's one of those people that has an ego that needs to be fed.
Right. Which I want to get into. Before I get into that, I don't really like the mayor. And Raymie, I don't want to sound political here, so forgive me. But some people online think that the mayor, like if Sly's supposed to be Jimi Hendrix, Bill has confirmed this as no, it's just a coincidence. Despite his name, Mayor Nick Dixon, a lot of people think he's really Richard Nixon.
Yeah. What Bill was doing with the characters' names is he was trying to come up with names that kind of had that they were kind of parody names from that period of America.
Right.
But you know what I again, it's just sort of like having multiple rugs pulled out from under me while we were working on it. Having this shift from the previous actor to George Segal. He is a tight ass, and he wants control, and he's very conservative. But that kind of like Sly, he has this kind of like mysterious past, which was kind of like reinforced by his need for that motorcycle, or he doesn't want to lose that motorcycle.
Right.
So I wanted to try and make it look like he had, at one time he was a nicer person, and that he might have, that ability to, what's the phrase? That he could be redeemed. That it wouldn't come off so forced by the time it was Happy Rebirth Day. I don't know if I got there quite. That kind of looks like a mandatory show tune where everything is kind of wrapped up tidy with a bow. But I mean, my initial hope was that he's a tight ass, and I tried to get that communicated even the way he moved, that he moves very stiffly,
right,
as opposed to Sly, who moves very fluidly. All those little things that you tried to feed in there but didn't come out. But I mean, it's completely, it's like, I mean, he is a villain. I just wanted him to be kind of a redeemable villain. I don't know if I succeeded.
I think you did. I mean, he shows like how much I think that what would you rather keep, the motorcycle or your children, and family values are more important than material items.
Yeah.
I just want to say now, before the last thing, one of my favorite side characters. They don't speak that much, but it's Betty and Veronica Robinson, Mrs. Robinson's daughters. They're like supporting characters for the main kids, Mick and Janice, and sometimes I think when I watch shows, like, these side characters have more potential than what they're given.
Yeah. That's true. And yeah, it's like, I mean, I wanted to have each of these people have an interior life, even though they barely had anything to say. I mean, Laura played her. Mrs. Robinson, I really, really wanted her to come across as Mrs. Robinson from The Graduate. So I think she even has the same kind of streak in her hair as Anne Bancroft does in The Graduate.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've noticed too, it's I pushed this really hard. I wanted her to be a chain smoker, and they made me take out all the cigarettes in this. Maybe for the right reason. I feel like every time I turn the TV on now, somebody's smoking a cigarette now. But back then, I thought, I think it'd be okay for a character that's not supposed to be, a character that you want to emulate. Certainly not Mrs. Robinson, but that she could have a bad habit.
Right.
Maybe it's tell kids don't smoke. You'll look like her. But anyway, I erased all of removed all of the cigarettes, but I didn't actually change any of her hand acting. So you'll see her that she'll plant an elbow on her hip, right, and her hand will go into a holding a cigarette pose, even though there's no cigarette. Anyway, an Easter egg maybe? I don't know.
Okay, so my last thing before I want to stop the recording, there actually is some. I want to tell you this. I don't think you know, but you can tell me if you do know. There is some cut content because I saw the script.
Oh yeah. The thing is, like in animation, you usually try to cut that stuff out before you spend too much labor into it. So, the sections that I know that are cut were certainly the Yellow Submarine one with the them riding the fish. I don't know if that's on your list of cut material.
No, the only thing I can think of is it's also a demo recorded track, and since Bill sent me the demos, I have that. It's called Wild Mountain Blues, where before they get into the cave, they're going through like a roller coaster Wild Mountain Blues ride.
Yeah, I know that. I don't believe it got any farther than. It certainly didn't get to animation. I'm not sure if it got to storyboard, but like the artist who disappeared on me.
Yeah.
I know he was supposed to be working on that stuff, and I think by the time we realized that we were never going to get it, I think it was that may have pushed us into cutting it. It may have been part of that discussion with Rough Draft to try and lighten their load because they were over a barrel. That I think it was in that area that again the Yellow Sub thing was happening. So I am reminded though there is one sequence that did go to color and we cut out, and that was Mick and Janice with a bunch of walruses. I think they were on an ice floe or something. It was pretty short, and that went to color. I don't think it was maybe 30 seconds. I don't know, but that's the only thing that that made it to color but didn't make it in the final cut.
Right.
Otherwise, we would make the cuts before we got that far.
The song in the demo called "All Dressed Up." And it's like very short. Like I couldn't even.
Yeah, it's the reprise. Yeah, the reprise that took place on an ice floe with some walruses, if I recall correctly.
According to the script, they're penguins.
Oh, penguins. Oh, okay.
And it's like all I can make out is like, nowhere to go. Well, my feet are cold. We're all dressed up, and I still feel cold, but I'm cool. I dribble around like a basketball, and we're all dressed up, and nowhere to go. Nowhere to go.
Okay. Yeah. So okay, I stand corrected, but yeah, that was something that was animated. I don't know if I'll ever come across that again.
You don't have it, do you, or any way to see it?
No. This was maybe my first project that was part digital. We were still drawing by hand, but there was no. I don't think there was. There was no camera here. This was a digital assembly composite, digital composite of hand drawn animation. It was inked and painted and shot in quotation marks, composited digitally. Right.
And I just want to, one more thing, there was a part that was kind of dark. It's in the script, and it was cut, and there was a problem with it, where Sly kind of acts evil briefly. Like, it's after the kids realize they gotta go home. He actually tries to he kind of acts like a dictator, kind of, like he won't let them leave, and he summons Dobermans and German Shepherds on them, and even, according to one scene, like, rubber hands to try and grab the kids, but that, like, I talked to another fan about that, and he said he's happy that's cut.
Yeah, my impression of that, I wonder if it's the reason I've forgotten about it. My first impression of that is like, dang, that just seems like that's really out of character for Sly. Yeah, it's too big a turn. I hate that when characters make too big a turn. You know, it's like, surprise, I'm a villain and I have all of this stuff, all of these powers that weren't hinted at before. So I can see myself objecting to it. And so maybe I may have made the call on that, but man, that's so ancient history. I don't recall it.
Right. Well, anyway, thank you all so much for listening, and hope you've enjoyed.